Hello everybody, I'm Ard, and welcome to another episode of Minecraft Enigmatica 2 Expert. Today, we're going to do another progression day, and get around to doing some more stuff that we don't really need all that much of anymore, but we need to bang out just to finish up the quest book. And today, we're going to continue on into the Industrial Foregoing chapter, which doesn't have all that much left to do. And I figured we would start with something that's actually off menu from the quest book, something I've been meaning to make for, I don't know, like 30 some episodes, I think. And that's the Villager Trade Exchanger. And there's no real surprises on any of these recipes we're going to make for the most part. They're all supremely easy. So I'm going to try my best to not say that like 10 times this episode like I have the last couple. Just assume that they're easy. It's so easy to make, I didn't even describe how to make it. I just did it. So, you might notice I'm also holding the Pokeball in my hand, and that's the mob imprisonment tool we also made forever ago that I intended to use and then just, never got around to making this. So, these are a combination of two things here. One, you start by taking your mob imprisonment tool and you find something you want to toss into it, either like, I don't know, a villager in this case, or a monster. In this case, let's take out my structural engineer, because and you shift right click it to get him out, and you can put him in the machine, just like that. And what becomes available are all of the trades that he had unlocked. And in this case, I used the structural engineer specifically to show you that one of the tricks that I mentioned. You can basically get free steel out of this. So if we bring up the steel scaffolding, we can then, if we set up a pipeline to do this, we could use this to pass emeralds in from our sieve farm into this, convert them into steel scaffolding, and then take the steel scaffolding and pass that into an arc furnace and output steel nuggets for free. Completely for free, just for emeralds that we're not using for anything other than trading for the most part. And if you feel like you don't want to deal with, I don't know, iron and coal, or air pressure from the IC2 system, or creosote from all the other blast furnaces, and you just don't want to make the coke oven upgrade for the thermal expansion one, well, here's another way to do it for free. So there you go. But let's put him back because I do need him for now. One of the other uses I saw for this was actually in Etho and Iskal's Enigmatica series, which was using a villager to create emeralds and passing those into a numismatic dynamo running the lapidary calibration, which eats gems and converts them into a fairly large amount of power over time. So this is a decent source of power. This is what they use to supercharge their base for the short run of it that they actually did. They just jumped straight forward to do this. So that's something else you can do with it. But the uses are completely numerous, all dependent on what you need, whether you want emeralds or you want a byproduct from any number of the villagers like I have here, just to automatically process, either create emeralds or to, I don't know, take my ape airs there and have them automatically output mossy combs for production into silk, stuff like that. So I guess next up we should continue along this theme and make the mob Duplicator, which lets you use the mob imprisonment tool to capture monsters and then spawn them indefinitely over and over, not unlike the Resturb spawner we were using before. And this one's a little bit more complicated, and we probably should actually take a look at this, because it requires a signalum cell frame, which is kind of expensive to make, but not completely out of bounds for what we have. We have everything we need to do this. But it also requires these two dolls from Ex Nihilo Creatio, which thankfully is mostly just porcelain clay, which is just clay and bone, and then some other materials, all stuff that we actually have. There's nothing too scary in here, it just looks different and scary because it's parts we haven't used before. Oh, and looking into this, I'm glad I stopped to actually check the ingredients, because this is rosin. This is not a slime ball like I had thought. This is where I'm glad we made the fractioning still a couple episodes back, so we need to load this up with resin to make the rosin out of this. That said, I do have to go make the resin funnel for the thermal expansion sawmill, which I don't think I have made. And the mob duplicator's done. That energy cell frame was that was a much bigger rabbit hole than I was thinking it was when I started it. That goes deep and long, and I had recorded a bunch of material I didn't readily have on hand already. But if I have to ever make it again, well, now I've got full stacks of most of that stuff sitting around and done. So this is finished. And putting this on the ground, if you right click it, you see that it takes essence and power. And then you would put a mob imprisonment tool in here if it had a mob in it. And if it had power, it would then use up essence to create mobs in the area displayed, in this case above it. The benefit of using something like this over the reserve spawners we have is that it goes a bit faster and doesn't require us having a bunch of spawners on hand to do it with, because we have to break 4 spawners and then have another unbroken one ready to make a reserve spawner. This doesn't require any of that. This just requires we imprison the mob in the Pokeball. That said, the reason I use the reserve spawners is the reserve spawners don't use power or essence or anything else. We're getting tons of essence out of the mob farm. We could use these pretty easily in there, but I just prefer the reserve spawners, honestly. Since they're extra utils too, they can take the extra utils to upgrades to speed them up, which uses up grid power, but no RF or anything else. We have quite a bit of grid power. We could speed them up if we need more wither skeletons faster or something along those lines. So probably tossing this in the box for now. The other main difference is that I believe this doesn't have the biome restrictions that the reserve spawners have, which is why I can't do things like set up a dragon spawner right now. So you might see me pull this out later to do something like that. So having completed the mob duplicator, I think the next thing we're going to do is right next to it, and it's the fluid crafter, which is an auto crafting table that allows you to pipe in fluids. So water or lava or who knows what, anything that would normally take a bucket though. We could use tanks in the recipes in a normal crafting table, but there's an upper limit to that. Making things like treated wood is kind of a giant pain because you max it out really, really quickly. This at least lets you just pump in a constant supply. It's also good for making things like the infinite water source blocks or cobblestone generators, which require tons and tons of buckets, just individual buckets to make pieces that then combine together to make more. So you just need to do it over and over and over. And to craft it, there's no real surprises. Okay, so I made it and I just set it back in the wall right here just to use it as an example right now. And I grabbed my creosote bucket from back over there by my blast furnace to show how to make treated wood with it. So looking in here, you can see it has a crafting grid and a fluid container and nothing in it, but it does have power. If we put the pipe on it and turn it on, all of a sudden the tank starts filling up and now we have creosote. And if we load it up with materials and a bucket with liquid we want, it will automatically produce the item that the recipe creates, in this case treated wood planks. So thankfully the fluid crafter was a useful one that we'll almost certainly have uses for in the future. Next up is the animal feeder, which we're just going to bang out and probably never actually use since I don't really need to breed normal animals all that often. But this just feeds animals automatically. And this is just another in Industrial Foregoing's Rancher series that includes the animal rancher, the mob slaughter factory, and the baby separator and whatnot to help you manage your farm animals. It's pretty simple to operate. It just requires a stock of whatever foods you're going to be feeding to the animals and then power. And it will just automatically keep feeding them to keep breeding them. I don't think this works properly with Enigmatica cattle because I think it just feeds them it too quickly, so you'll just exhaust your food for no real gain because of how their breeding cycle actually works. It's not really compatible with this, but I could be wrong. I haven't tested this in forever. But the Enigmatica ones are easy enough to automate with the troughs anyways and don't require power, so why would I? Next, we'll move over here to the laser base, which is to make the laser drill. And this is kind of like the void miner in that it generates ore. And this is one of those things that looks reasonable, but is sneakily expensive in a weird way because it has, refined glowstone, which we can make. It just requires a block of that, plastic, gold, machine frame, diamond gear, and this osmiridium, which if you go into the alloying thing is iridium combined with osmium. So depending on whether or not you have easy access to iridium, this can be pretty expensive. Thankfully, we have just enough iridium in our store to do this for now, but I'm gonna have to go mining pretty soon for more platinum to help restock this. The laser base, but the laser base does not work in a vacuum. Because in addition to the base, you also need the laser drill. And as this says above, when powered and pointed correctly, which I believe means at bedrock, it will produce ores, and it uses 4000 RF just like the void ore miner does. And to make this is actually easier than the base was. It has two odd components that are a bit different, which are the reinforced glass from Industrial Craft, which is just advanced alloy combined with glass, and I think I already have some of this made for a previous recipe. And the laser focus matrix, which is kind of a rabbit hole of just stuff we haven't seen before, which is just reactor glass, which is made by reactor frames, which is made by steel casings around an atomic alloy. And the laser drill is pretty similar to the void ore miner. You just point it down and it pulls up different ores. It can pull up rock crystal ores from astral sorcery though, which to the best of my knowledge the void ore miner does not. It can also apparently pull up star metal ore. But more importantly, it also can pull up the various gems from Biomes of Plenty. Okay, so having never made this before, I am chock full of misinformation. There's no bedrock. This isn't like the void ore miner. This can be literally placed anywhere. The base is on the left here, the laser's on the right. The laser has an aperture on one side that has to be facing the base, and the base can take up to 4 different lasers. The lasers consume a lot of power, as it was said, 4,000 RF a tick, and the lasers tick up the work on this over time. As you can see, we're already getting some nuclear craft ores out of it, which means this is actually a fairly decent thing to have set up. I'm just going to leave it here for the time being to make sure my power grid can handle this for now, and to see what we can get out of it, because I've seen the list, but I'm not sure if we can actually get all the things it claims it can get. I just don't know. But I should see if this is like impacting my new advanced generator, or is hitting my diesel supplies or anything, or just taking out a ton of power over time, because this uses the same amount of power that the void ore miner does. So this is a good test for plugging that in as well. Alright, so I came back to the laser base after a while just to see how it was doing, and there's a couple interesting things. One, I had to shut off my ender generator because it was starting to consume pearls too fast at this rate, but the advanced generator picked up like a champ right after that. So I just had to turn that one off and like reorganize my stuff, so this is the fallback instead of, I don't know, eating all of my ender pearls. Two, if you look inside this box that I have that it's emptying out into via a flat transfer node, you can see that there's actually some interesting things in here that are probably super useful long term. You can bypass stuff that's required from other planets, at least in a slow way, because this is kicking up things the void miner is not currently. Things like dimensional shards, which are only from other planets. Things like prosperity ore, same thing. But there's also all of the various Biomes of Plenty gems, which we were getting from sieving crushed endstone, but this means I can take that out entirely because now we'll have plenty. And then things like oil shale, which can help us produce fuel long term, although this is pretty slow. So there are some pretty interesting options that come out of this that I wasn't aware of because I've never used this before. I could add 3 more lasers to speed it up, and or use lenses to specifically target specific types of ore. But I don't think that's really necessary in the long-term scheme of things, at least the lenses. I'll probably add 3 more of these now that I know my base can support the power draw from it. But I also still have to go finish out my advanced generator to max out the turbines in it, and then see if I can actually make a second one using the same power source. I don't know how much ethanol I'm actually making. Now that we've made something exceedingly useful, let's talk about something that is interesting, but that we don't really need and is exceedingly expensive, and that's the black hole storage. So this lets you store utterly absurd amounts of materials. It's kind of like the storage drawers, but even more so. That said, we don't really need this. This is like overkill, at least for the point of the game that I'm at right now. I don't really see the point of it. And while the controller here doesn't look too bad to do, and it's honestly not, especially since we can make the plastic now from substrate, there's actually a pretty big problem when you get to the black hole unit itself. Because this requires a black hole talisman from Botania, which requires a Gaia spirit, which requires being much further into Botania than you are. So this isn't happening anytime soon. So unfortunately, we won't be finishing the chapter today. That said, we can absolutely do the resources fisher, which is just an automated fisher, which is significantly easier than the black hole storage system. The way that the fisher works is you just put it over a 3x3 grid of water and give it some power. I just have it out here for example purposes, so you can see how it works. But you can see that it's draining the battery, and inside here, you can see that this is ticking up and it's just generating fish over time. Long term, I'm probably gonna go shove this in my basement over a small pool of water. It doesn't need to be open water, doesn't require sky, doesn't require anything, just like normal fishing doesn't. In fact, I probably should go do that right now while I'm thinking about it. I had forgotten exactly how many different types of fish Pamp's Harvest Craft added. And on to the last and probably the silliest one we'll do today, the protein reactor and protein generator, which lets you generate power from meat. In theory, we already have the culinary generator. This, I think, actually generates more power than the culinary generator does straight up, because yeah, it looks like it generates 300 total tick for a bucket of protein. And yield buckets of protein are created by the protein reactor, which grinds up meat into protein. It can take up to 9 different types, and the more different types you have, it increases the efficiency gained from each different type. Alright, so I made them. And if we start in the protein reactor here, you load in the up to 9 different types of protein that you want. The efficiency raises versus the different types of protein that you use. And it generates the liquid protein and uses power, which you can then feed over into the protein generator, which will eat the protein and create power. Making this required making the biofuel generator, which is the same thing, but it is created from biofuel from the bioreactor. And the bioreactor is the same sort of thing as the protein reactor, except it takes pretty much any plant matter. Same general process, the more different types you use, the more efficiency it gets. Anyhow, let's pop up in the loot chest and see what we got. Greenhouse glass, which would be useful if our farm was outside. Random animals, so who knows what that's going to be. Angel blocks, mob imprisonment tool, well that's timely. Razor wire, which that's pretty useless. The lanterns, which we can make pretty easily now. Another Manaseer monocle. Food we haven't eaten though. That's delightful. Come on, that was gold, people. Donut we have eaten. Pizza we haven't eaten. More blocks. Well, not all that exciting this time, but that got us progress almost all the way through the Industrial Foregoing chapter, other than the one hard segment that we will probably never actually use. So anyhow, as always, I'm Ard. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.